everyone. Welcome to Project Herpetoculture podcast. I'm your host, Roy Arthur Blodgett, and I'm joined as always by my intrepid co-host, Philip Leitz of Arids Only. We have an excellent show for you today, but before diving in, we have some brief housekeeping. So first, I'd like to thank Dylan and the Animals at Home Network for hosting our show. It continues to be a pleasure to be part of this platform. We'd also like to extend special gratitude to Charlie, who generously edits our audio and has done a lot to improve the quality of our show over time. And we'd also like to take a moment to tell you about our sponsors. So first, we have Custom Reptile Habitats, who have been with us since day one. They produce top-of-the-line PVC reptile enclosures, and I use them for a lot of the large format vivaria here. They're also carrying universal rocks, misking products, and a bunch of other useful stuff. So if you're in the market for any of that and you're planning to make a purchase, consider doing so through the link in our bio or description. We'll receive a small commission at no additional cost to you, and that really helps us keep the lights on over here.
Up next, we have Fairy Tale Dragons. That's the joint venture between Heather Moy and Ron St. Pierre, both of whom have achieved legendary status in herpetoculture. They've accomplished quite a lot and produced some of the finest bearded dragons and taliqua in the country, alongside a whole host of other species such as emerald tree boas and green tree pythons. Check them out if you're in the market for any of that, and be sure to follow along with them on social media. They're always up to something interesting over there.
Next, we have Cold-Blooded Caffeine, roasters of delicious coffees from all over the globe. We have a private label with them, the PH Blend, which is a light roast coffee from Rwanda. It's a great choice for those who prefer a more floral coffee with notes of berry, but they have a wide variety of options for a broad array of preferences. So check them out. And if you place an order, don't forget to use the code PROJECTHERP for 10% off.
We're also very pleased to have the support of Exoterra, a brand that needs no introduction. It's safe to say that herpetoculture wouldn't be where it is today without the influence of Exoterra. For decades, they've been industry leaders in innovation, offering just about everything needed for reptile care, from diets and supplements to enclosures, substrates, and lighting. We're both big fans of their naturalistic terraria and substrates in particular. They have a lot of interesting products in the works as we speak, and we're really looking forward to seeing what comes next.
And next we have Tamura Designs. For those in the know, Tamura Designs is widely regarded as one of the finest enclosure manufacturers on the planet. They produce outstanding large format vivaria with endless options for customization, drains, UV printed backgrounds, lighting rigs. On top of all of that, they also make amazing deli cup displays for expos and these incredible multi-unit condos, which I use here. So if you're interested in any of that and you decide to make a purchase, use the code Herpetoculture for 15% off one item as a special offer to our listeners only. We also have Happy Dragons. We're really thankful to have the support of Happy Dragons. They are producing some amazing content for bettering our reptile care. And we've been actually partnering with them to produce even more content like webinars. Also, the platform and subscription service offers breeder access to first clutches, things like that. We have online courses coming down the pipeline. In addition, we have live Q&As with reptile experts, such as Mariah Healy from Reptiphiles. It's truly an outstanding subscription package that also offers discounts on their supply partners, such as Ovipost and Joss's Frogs. It's really an outstanding product. So check it out. And let us know what you think.
And last but not least, if you're interested in supporting the show directly with something of a tip or a monthly donation, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/projectherpetoculture. We have a monthly live chat there with all of our paid subscribers. That's been a whole lot of fun so far. We also have a whole line of merchandise like t-shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and more on our website. And of course, sharing the show with a friend, subscribing on YouTube, and keeping up with social media is always very helpful.
And with all that said, we're on to the show. Thanks, everybody. And we are live. Hello, everybody. My name is Roy Arthur Blodgett, and I'll be your host today. I'm joined, as always, by my intrepid, charismatic, and handsome co-host, Philip Leitz of Arids Only. And we have an excellent show today. I'm really excited to chat with the Greenhouseboyz, Flo, Till, and Ben. And we're going to have a great conversation about greenhouses and their application in herpetoculture. But before we dive into that, I want to talk a little bit about Happy Dragons. And Happy Dragons makes this. That works out for y'all. And with that, we're going to jump back into the scene and get into our conversation.
Is there any way we can like incorporate this damn cat in the conversation or like in the giveaway or something? Like however many times this cat swats me in the face with the tail, people can bet on. I don't know. Never mind.
Let's go.
She's funny.
Oh.
There's the cat. All
Salem.
right. Philly, would you like us to would you first like to introduce the cat to everybody?
Yeah, this
Since
is
she's an
Salem.
integral part of the chat today.
Yeah, this is
I would love
Salem.
to know
and
more about her.
she's a super sweet kitty, and she's a barn cat. Nobody knows where the hell she came from or like what. Well, I mean, we know where she came from, but we don't know what who her dad is or anything like that. And we got her as a little kitten, and now she's just this. Well, she's still a kitten. She's only like 7 months old. She's a giant. She's already almost as big as our Bengals. So yeah,
Wow.
that's that. Yeah, well, she's bigger than the one already for sure, but she's just not as big as Zeus just yet.
Is it a? I'm sorry, Phil. Is it a Maine Coon?
Yeah, no, she's just a long-haired barn cat. You see her up here right now behind me?
All right.
That's her playing with Zeus, who's our big Bengal boy, and he's like 4. And look at her, she's almost as big as him. Look at her, she's biting the crap out of him, beating his ass. He deserves it too. He's a real douche. He's mean. Anyway. Yeah, that's it. So it's been a great show, everybody. Yeah, we got 2 of them. We got one silver. Yeah, we got one silver Bengal.
May I
and one...
just ask one question about your Bengals, Phil?
Anytime, yeah,
okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Which generation is it? Like, is it a F1, F2, F3?
We don't know for sure. But it's probably not. They're probably not very fresh. They're probably like, we think Zeus might be kind of, kind of close because like, I'll show him to you. Hang on. It's turned into a feline, a project felinus. Where is Zeus? Come here, buddy.
Wait till Flo pull out his cat.
Big boy,
Yeah,
Zeus.
big boy, man.
He's a big boy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, buddy. He doesn't like me. This is Zeus.
Okay, I feel like we should talk about greenhouses, y'all.
I'm sorry.
Cats and greenhouses.
Okay, so yes, today we're going to be talking about greenhouses, which is why we have the wonderful Greenhouseboyz with us. And to start off the conversation, I would be curious to hear from the 3 of you. Maybe we can start with Flo and then go to Till and Ben. But let's hear, like, when did you first begin keeping reptiles in greenhouses? And did it start with plants first, or did you always have the intention to keep reptiles in your greenhouses?
Okay, so this is actually the first real greenhouse. So it's like 2 years old now. And it was intentionally for snakes, but now it turned into a lizard greenhouse. And it was like plants and snakes. So best of both worlds. Yeah, that's like the thing.
Awesome. So yeah, what about you, Till, Ben? What's your story with greenhouses and how you got started with them?
I think you need to start because you were the first one to start building
Alright.
something like this. And
Yeah, so I guess everybody knows this vision of a bright future where you have a walk-in greenhouse at home, tropical plants and birds and reptiles and everything around you. And I guess most of us would like to have something like that at home, I guess, and a lot of people in the hobby. So like once we got to know each other, it was like maybe 4 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, 3 to 4 years, I think.
Something like that, yeah. We kind of connected on this common interest for this privately owned tropical greenhouses. And so we started to build a vision about building something like that in our apartments. And for me, the situation was like that I just finished my studies, moved to a new city, got a new job, finally got my own apartment, and I was finally ready to build a project at my home. So it was the first one that the three of us built, and Flo's one was next, and I think the third one was Till. But we built our setups within a very short period of time. Within some months, all three of us had a setup at home. And for me, it was specifically designed for keeping animals, but I wanted to, have this green bioactive setup at home. So there was a huge focus on plants. But if you ask me, I built it for the animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think at first I didn't want to join because I thought this will take up too much space at my home. And I already did build some enclosures with these aluminum frames that we also used for the greenhouses. But I used it to build like classic enclosures with some kind of wood. And the boys started building their project, and I was like, damn, maybe I should do something little for my. I think it was during the pandemic, and I was working from home 24/7, and I was always sitting at my desk and thought, I need something green. I need
a slice of jungle.
A slice of jungle. So I started thinking about maybe no more animals, but just build something for the plants. And so this idea grew, and the boys helped me. So I have the smallest of the greenhouses. You can see them in the back. This one in the back, it's like 1.20 meters long, 60 centimeters deep, and 2.35 meters high. And then when I built it, I was like, maybe some little anoles. So now there's a male St. Vincent anole in there, and he's living his life. But at my place, the main goal was to build something for the plants.
Awesome. That's an amazing space for one anole.
Yeah, that's true. What's maybe also pretty interesting to know, or it's like we call it greenhouses because of the materials that we use. So maybe guys see it and say like it's only a big enclosure, but we actually call it greenhouses because we using like the polycarbonated panels that you use for like greenhouses. For example, like Ben's enclosure is like a real greenhouse because it's huge. He can really walk in there. My enclosure is like also big, but I can't walk in there. So you can't say it's like a big terrarium, but we call it greenhouse because of the panels and the materials. So for everyone, just maybe a side fact.
Yeah.
No,
that's
actually,
great.
that's kind of interesting. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit? Because that's actually kind of that's an interesting perspective. I'm really curious because I had never really thought about like, well, what really defines a greenhouse, right? And so you're calling it just based on the paneling, but wouldn't there be something to do with like, in my mind, when I think of a greenhouse, I'm always thinking of something that has like skylighting or has some kind of, like an outdoor component. Is that inaccurate or not appropriately applied here?
I think, I don't know, but you also have like grow tents or something like that. Maybe it's a mix between a grow tent and a greenhouse because it's like indoor, but we use materials that usually is used in outdoor greenhouses. So I think that's like maybe the fusion of both of them. But for example, Ben has like one enclosure inside, and his animals can also go outside on a balcony, and he also used like the panels outside. So I think his is like the nearest to like a real greenhouse. Yeah. I think that's
Well,
that's
and there are some pretty cool ways. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
no.
I've very regularly looked at like some of the small if you get on like Amazon.com, you can find these sort of small PVC assemblable greenhouses that are, I think their main design is for people who live in like apartment complexes to put them on their balconies and things like
Yeah.
this, right? Or if you have a really small backyard or whatnot. But also there's some other ones that are like these sort of medium-sized greenhouses that are maybe 6 feet tall, 6 feet long, maybe 4 feet wide or so. And I've long looked at those as like possible enclosure concepts for various stuff here, especially for some of the things that I have, like some of the butterfly agamas, which, might require a little bit more humidity, which is difficult to apply here in the space as I have it now. And it's obviously it's not horribly refined and they're not very well constructed, and it would be difficult to add lighting inside of those things. But it's kind of a cool thing. So actually to think about like the difference between what's really the difference between a greenhouse and an enclosure, it's like probably nothing really. They're probably
Yeah, true.
Um,
True.
I'm a little bit into the houseplant hobby as well, and
Just a little bit.
just a little bit. And I've seen it, I think, also during the pandemic, because houseplant people went crazy during that time because, I need a hobby to do at home. And so I've seen multiple people put like these, like Phil, like you said, these Amazon greenhouses just in their flat to keep bigger aeroids, for example, Anthurium species or big monsteras, to have them in a more humid room. And so, maybe it would work out as well to use them for the animals.
I would
like to
imagine
say
so.
something.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, by all respect, Phil, if you ask me, if you want to do it right, you got to build it by yourself, because there's just nothing there's no pre-assembled or pre-manufactured setup that you can buy, just set up in your apartment and just be happy about it. There's always some things that are just not perfect for, especially if you want to keep animals, because if you want to keep animals, you always have to be sure that the setup needs to be perfectly escape proof. And imagine working with anoles, for example, lizards that can squeeze through tiny holes. If you just get a setup, a greenhouse that is made for grown vegetables on your balcony, it's never gonna be 100% escape proof. And also, in my opinion, if you want to build a setup inside of your apartment, there's always a huge limitation of space. Yeah, nobody has enough space to do whatever he wants to do. And so you need to find a way to utilize the space that you've got to the highest level. Yeah. And us, for example, all of us, we build our setups all the way to the ceiling, for example. Yeah, we build huge like cubes. We measured the ceiling height and try to, surround as much space as possible so the animals have some space to move around. And if you take a look at these pre-manufactured greenhouses, they always have these. Most of the time, they have these roof shapes, so you lose a lot of space in the top area.
Sure.
And also, there will always
Right,
be some
yeah.
distance between your ceiling and the top of the greenhouse, and it's just never gonna be right. Especially you don't really have the chance to look inside because you don't want these polycarbonate panels all around, and it's just a different level, in my opinion, to build something by yourself, to start working on this project for weeks and weeks, and to think about every detail, and to build something that's just, I don't want to say perfect, because none of our setups is perfect. We learned a lot
from perfect.
We learned a lot along the way, but we are getting there, and it's just
Yeah.
a different thing.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I definitely think there's something there about being able to build everything yourself. But I guess what I'm trying to say is part of the reason that I tend to look at somewhat more like ready-made options is just as a result of scale. It's like if it's just one thing, if it's just one enclosure, well then yeah, sure, like I can put in some time and really build it out and make it really substantial. But when it's something that I'm looking into that might translate across an entire shop space like mine, then I tend to look more towards something that could be scaled up, because that's kind of what I want to do. I love the idea of finding some kind of solution that will allow me to give more space and more bandwidth to each individual animal, rather than sort of one at a time here. And obviously, again, this is just a matter of difference in scale. Again, if it, you look at just one individual project and it would be fine. Like, for example, my Pilbara rock monitors, they get a lot more individually because it's just the two of them. Like, it's just those two. So it's a lot easier to give each of them something much more substantial. But, in the case, say, of my Euromastix ornata, I've got 60 of them, and so taking, that number, that was one of the reasons that the kiddie pool things that I'm using now work out so well, is because they were cheap, they were easily available, it was an easy barrier to give a lot of space to one single animal, and it only works because there's not as much that needs to be contained, both in terms of humidity and temperature and plant life, right?
Yeah, I agree, but I also disagree with you on some points. If I may give you some feedback about what you just said. Yeah. I hope it's okay. I don't want any beef or so.
Of course, yeah. No, of course. Yeah.
We need the beef for the clicks.
It's about to go down.
Yeah,
it's going down,
dude. No, I always want to hear it.
Yeah, no, it's all right. First of all, I'm impressed by your vision. So to me, it seems like you want to go for it like a full-time business. Is it something that you want to do?
Oh yeah,
in the long run.
It is. Yeah,
Okay.
It is now.
So when you're speaking about the economies of scale, I think if you do everything just by yourself, if you plan out your projects from the start to finish, I think the economies of scale can work out very well in your benefit if you want to, if you plan to or if you design a setup that is easily makeable, if you can use locally available materials, and if you can make it reproducible, then you have a lot of workload for the planning process one time, but you can multiply the setups as much as you want. And I'm very sure that I'm very convinced that the final cost of the DIY setups is going to be lower than the ones that you can buy pre-made, because you can buy the raw materials from the wholesale. For example, you can go to a aluminium manufacturer, you can go to a, I don't know, wholesale, how do you call them, these hardware shops, and you can buy huge quantities of raw materials, and it's going to be a lot cheaper for you at the end if instead of buying 60 individual tiny grow setups from Amazon. I'm not sure about that.
Are these aluminium frames that we use here, like from Alustech, it's the company, I think, are they available where you live?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I've never even looked into that.
They are.
Okay. Because the cool thing about them is we all use the same like settings.
Aluminium profiles.
Yeah, the same profiles, the same width, and everything. And I built like 3 snake enclosures with them, and this one, and the guys also did their stuff with it. And it's pretty cool when you want to rebuild something, or if you want to upgrade something, you can just cut it in the size you need it and add something on it. So it's also a benefit about them, because I could cut this down and build like 3 little enclosures out of it, or I could get some more adaptions and some more profiles and make it triple this size. So maybe this could also help. Yeah, it's a lot of cost in the beginning, but with a like large size scale, it could also help you to be more flexible with your setups, I think.
Yeah, there's an element
for sure.
of modularity, that is really pretty cool. So kind of expanding on this a little bit, I'm curious if we could like kind of get into like, what are the advantages, like in your words, of keeping in greenhouses, And then are there disadvantages? Are there challenges, that you face in keeping large scale setups like this that you wouldn't experience in smaller setups? And how do you address those challenges?
Okay, who should go first? You two, or should I?
You can go. You can go first, Flo.
Okay, so to be honest, I think there's only benefits in my opinion. Yeah, because like first off, like you need to see it, like the animals inside of there. It's crazy. It's totally different behavior from them because like they have a huge amount of space. They have like a lot of temperature zones. So for example, in my enclosure, I have like highest temperatures on top are like 35, 40 degrees sometimes, and on the bottom it's like 19 degrees. So they have like a huge variety of temperatures where they can choose where they want to be. And also like because it's like deep and planted and stuff like that, it's also they feel very secured. And with all my animals that I kept in the enclosure, they're like not tame but like not shy at all because they know, okay, when I want to go I can leave and not only leave for like 10 centimeters in the back. I can leave for like 2 meters in the height or something like that. And also like, okay, the only struggle maybe are the lights, in my opinion, because like my enclosure is like 3 meters high, and to have like strong lights to penetrate all the way down to the bottom, it's like very hard because even so I have like 6 Arcadias on there, and it's like only going to halfway. That's something, but overall with humidity, especially with, like the polycarbonated panels that we used, these are also insulating, so we can manage the temperatures very good. I don't have like a huge drop at night or huge raise in like the afternoon or in the summertime. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, you can be super creative and have like much more space to build something cool, in my opinion. Yeah, it's like, especially for me, it's like always the animals comes first, and for me, I haven't had animals like in better shape and stuff like that, like in this greenhouse, because they move so much. They burn a lot of calories. They're
Right.
very muscular.
Yeah.
It's easily you can feed them every day, for example, and they burn it off. You have like when you have a bioactive setup, for example, you can't feed for 1 week because you're on vacation. No problem, because you have like feeders in there, and it's like it's perfect. The only struggle for me is, okay, I have one enclosure, and when I when I want another animal, I wouldn't be able to keep them in a smaller setup because I know, okay, they would thrive much more in like a big setup. That's like my struggle, to be honest.
The
So I
golden
need more.
cage.
Yeah.
I need more greenhouses. Yeah. Oh, and also like, for example, I keep the Enialoides that I have at a pair inside of the greenhouse, and they don't stress out because they have like so much space to escape from each other. Even when the female laid her eggs last week, the male doesn't even bother because she was like hidden away because she can escape. And that was like also with the anoles that I kept in there. A lot of people said Anolis grahami is very aggressive. The males are very aggressive to the females. But I think that's oftentimes because the enclosure is way too small. How could a female escape in a like big exoterra or something? There's no way she can escape.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Interesting.
So what about you guys? Till, Ben, what do you think about the
I
advantages and
would like to
drawbacks
ask a
for
question to
greenhouses?
Flo.
Okay,
Yeah.
please.
I would like to ask a question. What would you do? What would you do? Sorry, man. What would you do differently if you had to build up your setup once again?
Maybe we can talk about this later. I think this will open up a lot of things because I know that you guys also would change some things, right?
Yes,
And
I,
I
I
think
would love
that's
to know about it, man.
yeah, but later.
Let's save that question for a
Yeah.
little bit later in the conversation, because I actually want to ask about that and how to get started for folks who might want to try greenhouse keeping. So
Till, I would like
Till,
to
Ben,
know.
what do you think?
Okay. So should I start?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's hard to say these are only pros or cons of building and keeping animals in greenhouses, because each of our setups are so different. There are some things I fucked up at my. Can I say this here?
No.
I did
Yeah.
wrong with my
Yeah.
setup, and some things maybe Ben did wrong or Flo did wrong, and they are also different. So just saying a greenhouse is perfect and like an exoterra is not perfect is a bit difficult, because it depends on your goals and what you want to achieve and what you want to keep. Because you can also build a very shitty greenhouse and have a very perfect setup exoterra. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, true.
it's hard to see everything black and white. The big pro for me with the greenhouse is how modular they are, like I said before. For example, Ben, you moved to a different city 2 years ago?
Last year.
Last
Like
year.
1.5 years ago.
1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we three met. We tore everything apart in one day and started setting it up on the same day. And I think 1 or 2 days later, your whole setup was back up again, and you could start modeling it into the new flat. And I moved later last year, and Flo and I disassembled this one in one day together with all of my alu enclosures as well. And this was set up the day after, and I really like this. So you're so flexible with them. But for me, there are kind of some things I would do different with this if I would build it new, but I think we will get to that later. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, what are the benefits, or the pros and the cons about the greenhouse style of keeping? Yeah. So when we like developed the concept for the first setup, and it was mine, there was a need to find a way to build a large scale bioactive setup that is modular. That was what I wanted to go for, because back in the day, it was like 8 to 6 years ago, I was still living in my student apartment, and I was already working with animals. It was various small mammals that I was specialized in. And I already had a big setup, like a 5-6 square meter type setup, but it was made from like cheap wood. And it was also kind of a moist setup. So the wood was not doing well, and it was just looking shitty. It was always it gave me a dirty vibe, and it was not modular at all. And once I moved out of the apartment, I had to just break down everything and just put it on the trash. So in my eyes, I wanted to build a setup that is huge, that gives me the chance to control the humidity and temperature very well, and that it can easily be torn down and built back up again. Because I knew that once I will build a setup like that, I will probably move before I want to get rid of the setup, and I had to um, I had to um, had to build it to the minimum requirements from the local authorities, and it needed to be 12 cubic meters in volume, because of the animals that I'm working with. So there was no other way than to build. In my eyes, there was no other way than to build an indoor greenhouse. So we had to figure it out, and it was going well. But there are also some cons, and I would like to speak about that for a moment, because maybe on the first hand, it's not very cheap if you want to do it. There are definitely more cheap ways to build a huge setup. Yeah, you can just build a wooden frame, and you can just cover it in some semi-transparent, I don't know, cheap PVC acrylic material, and it's probably gonna be cheaper like that. But if you want to do it right, it's a long-term investment, I guess. And I'm pretty sure all of us, we will keep our setups maybe in this form or maybe in a little bit adjusted height or width or something, but we're going to keep the materials that we already got here. So it's a long-term investment. So in my eyes, it's still a pretty good deal. But I think all of us three, if not mainly me and also Till, we have some issues with drainage in our setups. And that's something that we have learned along the way, because if you want to keep a huge setup with a lot of substrate on the floor area, and you want to keep the substrate moist, maybe sometimes even wet because you want to water the plants, but you're living in a rented apartment and you need to be very careful about nothing to be leaking and everything. It's a huge challenge to do that on a big scale, because you can easily do that in a Exoterra. Yeah, we had that example earlier. But in a giant setup, it's a challenge to control the wetness of the substrate and to keep the floor below protected. And yeah, we've got some solutions for that, and it's going to be different the next time. But now we got to live with the setup that we got for the moment, and it's good, but it's definitely not perfect for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, the drainage is something that I can imagine would be a real challenge. I've experienced that even with my large Vivaria here, just that, especially for tropical species, if you're misting a lot, you're cycling a lot of water through, it can be really easy to saturate the substrate. And then it's like, okay, how do you get that water out unless you have a built-in drain, which would be
that's
optimal,
true.
but
can I
you learn
say
that the
one
hard way
thing
sometimes. Yeah.
So because of the costs, I think to be honest, it's not that expensive. So when you compare it, like how much is like a big, okay, can we still say Exoterra? So we have this as an example. Sorry, I really like no, I really like Exoterra, but how much is a big Exoterra, a new one? 500, the largest one?
Probably. I think it's around that for the largest one they make. Yeah.
Yeah. So like my enclosure is like.
Stop. Flo. I would like to ask you, Phil and Roy, what do you think? What's the cost for a flow setup? Everything included.
Didn't you already?
No, not everything included. I think just the frame and the polycarbonated panels, because the
okay. So just a body.
Couple, two to $400 maybe.
I would guess like $800 just for the frame and panels.
Yeah,
and the glass. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's like I think it was like 800 or 700 for the frame stuff, maybe a little bit more, but I think for my enclosure is like 1.5 meter. No, 1.5 meters long, almost 1.5 meters deep, and 3 meters high, and this was like for like under 1,000 euros. I think it's not that expensive, to be honest. When you let it build from a terrarium company or buy like a glass terrarium, I think it's much more expensive than building it yourself. Of course, the inside is like you can spend 10 grand in there with plants, fancy plants or stuff like that. But you can also just like get some cool branches and some cheaper plants, and it's also a nice setup. I think it's not that expensive because it's a one-time investment, and like Ben and Till said, you can always debuild it and add stuff or turn it down or something like that. I also have to move like in 3 months, and I also have to rebuild this greenhouse and gonna cut it a little bit shorter.
Yeah,
that sounds horrible.
That's no problem.
Yeah,
I don't know. That sounds terrible to me.
No, imagine I have to throw it away or build a completely new one. It's like,
yeah,
right.
That way I save a lot of money. I actually wanted to sell it, but I didn't find someone, and I was like, okay, maybe I sell it for like 2,500 with all the stuff in there. Okay, and then I need to buy exactly new one for 2,000. I can also just remodel it a little bit and save money.
Yeah,
right.
Makes sense.
Right.
Cool. Well,
trying
okay.
to-
So moving on a little bit. Or go ahead, Phil.
No, it's okay.
Okay. One thing I wanted to ask about is just like how do you approach like the heating and lighting for such large spaces? I mean, the lighting seems pretty obvious, but I'm curious about like the heating in particular for, if you're trying to achieve certain temperatures, like for example, for a tropical species, how do you efficiently heat such a large space? So maybe,
Mhm.
yeah, do you want to start, Flo, or whoever can start?
I can start. So in the summer times, I have like I have a heat lamp on there because our apartment is warm enough and the temperatures are good in there. But in the wintertime, it was a little bit colder than I wanted it to be. So I changed like the heat lamp for a heat panel to heat up the whole greenhouse. I have like a fan running on top, so pushing the hot air down and have like a nice little yeah, all the way heated up enclosure. This was like the best way to heat it. And mine is also near the heater. That helps also. Yeah, like I said, because it's like well insulated. Once you
Mhm.
heated it up, it holds the heat. I think Ben has more struggles with it, but he has like species that don't need it that warm, so it's fun.
That makes sense. Yeah, Ben,
Yeah.
how do you approach it, Ben, for such a large? I mean, your greenhouse
Yeah.
is like it's room size, just for everyone's,
Yeah.
awareness about it.
It is a
It's quite
walk-in
it's quite
greenhouse.
a thing. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I think all three of us, we have kind of a little bit different solutions for the heating topic. For me, for example, I've got the greenhouse in a separate room in my apartment. So it's like this animal room type of style where you can just control the temperature of the whole room, and that way the animals are fine. For me, it's not a struggle about heating. Actually, heating is not a thing at all that I'm going for, because for those of the listeners that don't know, I guess most of them probably don't know, I'm working with a slow lorist. It's a small primate from Southeast Asia, and so it's not a reptile that needs some significant heat around them all the time. So for me, it's more the struggle of cooling it down in the wintertime. So I'm doing that by connecting uh, what's the name for a Klimaanlage? An air conditioner to the greenhouse. And with an air conditioner, so the conditioner, it consumes energy to split up the room temperature air into cold and warm air at the same time. And so that way I can select if I want to channel the cold air into the setup to cool it down and to move the warm air out of the window, or I can just change it, move the cold air out of the window and move the warm air into the setup to heat it up. So that's a pretty good solution in my opinion. Yeah, but for me, it's the most easy just to control the temperature of the whole room and just to leave the window open in the winter time just to cool the room down a little bit. I think in Tills and Flo setup, a huge benefit of the huge height is that you've got different temperature zones, and if you keep like arboreal lizards like a nose or the Enyaloides, for example, like arboreal agametes or iguanas or whatever, then the animals, they can just choose the right like height or the right area
Right.
inside of the setup, and that way you don't necessarily have to take care of adjusting down to 1 degree Celsius or whatever, because that's what you do in a very confined space. But in a large space, the animals, they've got the instinct to survive, and they will just pick the right spot for them.
Right. That totally makes sense.
Yes, that was the perfect example for me to continue, because yeah, when now, since I moved into the new flat and we had the colder winter days, I noticed that my anole will stay at. I have an Arcadia LED light on there, one of the big ones, and a T5 UV light, and in the old flat, everything got warm enough for him to just travel all around the back wall. Most of the time, he won't go to the bottom, but over the cold days, he stayed more and more directly under the UV light. There's a branch pretty close, so that's the sign for me. Yeah, I need to get some more heating in there, and yeah, right now I have to figure that out. But now the warmer days are coming, so and I live right under the roof, so I don't think the heating will be a problem for the next month. But I will have to figure something out for the winter. Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. That makes sense. Well, okay, so I'm curious about just talking a little bit for people who might be interested in trying a greenhouse, like how would you recommend going about starting? Would you recommend starting with something smaller, maybe starting with just with plants, or how would you go about it? What would you recommend?
I think the most important part is to make a well-structured plan of how you want to build it, and think it through every now and then before you order all the stuff, because every one of us has made different measuring mistakes. So the best part is like draw it and measure everything and draw all the length you need, because with the aluminum frame where we live, you can order them already cut into the big into the size you need them, and you can order all the connectors. And there have been moments where we were like, hey Ben, do you still have like this 3-piece connector? I don't want to order again and stuff. So maybe order some more material and plan it very well, and I think then it's possible in every size.
I think the best person to answer this question is Ben, because to be honest, Ben was this was the first enclosure, and all of our enclosures are like a copy of his, and he helped us. So
Not a
he
copy.
made no, not a copy, but you are the brain behind drawing and stuff like that. I think you should answer it because you make like 3D models and helped us out with that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I think as Till already said, I think the planning process is the most important phase of the whole construction, because you really need to figure it out before you spend your money on the materials, in my opinion. So you should find a place inside of your apartment or even on a balcony, wherever you want, and just take good measurements and maybe start designing it in 3D. And that's the way that I did it for like almost all of the setups, because in 3D you have just a very good visualization about what is possible and also what looks good, because you can't just I don't know, just to put the profiles in whichever direction you want, because it has to be statically proof. Yeah. It's not super intuitive, in my opinion. So you should make a plan, draw it. Especially, it's very good to draw it in 3D and think about it for multiple days or maybe even 2-3 weeks. Maybe you can compare it to getting an important and a big tattoo. You don't want to rush it. You want to
I
take
like
your
that,
time,
yeah.
make good decisions, and to sleep over it multiple times, and maybe even speak to people that have got some experience with building unique setups, because you can do a lot of things wrong, especially if you, for just as an example, if you earlier we were speaking about making the setups escape proof for small lizards. In my setup, for example, I wildered 50 morning geckos in there, and I'm pretty sure they didn't escape. They are gone now, but they didn't escape. So the setup, it needs to be shut. And if you want to build perfect doors, you have to really take a lot of caution about every millimeter to make everything fit perfectly. And the planning process is important.
Yeah, and you also have to think about how the material could move. For example, these doors are full glass doors, and of course they are pulling a little bit to
Yeah.
the middle. So you have to think about that also when you plan on how much space should the door,
Tolerances.
tolerance
Yeah.
should be there. Yeah. So because if I had planned the doors like perfect fitting, I couldn't open them right now. I think.
Yeah. Do you think,
Right.
just a question to you two, like Roy and Phil,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
you are asking, how can you approach like designing and building a setup like that, and what are the best steps or whatever? Do you think there's a demand for like somebody who has got experience like us to teach people how to do it, like a, I don't know, tutorial, something like
Yes.
that, or
Yes.
YouTube style videos or something like that?
Of course.
Yes.
course,
If
yeah,
you if there's
absolutely.
if there's demand, say yes in the chat, people.
Yeah,
Is there a
I,
chat?
yeah,
my
Because I don't
impression,
even see a chat.
there is a chat. Yeah, there is a chat on the YouTube page. But yeah, I think that there's demand. So we'll just have to hear it from the people.
Yeah,
yeah. No,
So I was
absolutely.
already thinking about offering a like greenhouse consultation service, because in my
Yeah.
profession,
Yeah.
I'm working in the. I used to be working in the solar industry. I just quit my job 2 weeks ago.
Now he has time for you guys.
Yeah, so I'm still at the moment. I'm still working in the solar industry, and I'm working a lot like in a B2C with clients, one-on-one interactions, and I'm doing like a planning service for the solar systems on the residential rooftop areas. And I was thinking about offering something like that, like a remote consultation service with online meetings and with some planning on my side, and to allow somebody on the other side of the world to buy the raw materials that I selected that are locally available to him, maybe. And so he can, those people, they can build a greenhouse according to my plan, something like that. I was thinking
Yeah, I
about
think it's a
something like
great
that
idea.
because I'll be out of a job soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. There's
Definitely
always
a good idea.
something. Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. Very much.
So also for the people, it would be cheaper than just
Make
buying a
mistakes.
custom enclosure. That
Yeah.
way they can learn how to build something by themselves. They get the skills to do it alone next time, or build something different next time. And it's also cheaper because they have to build it and assemble it by themselves. We talked to a few people who bought custom enclosures a little bit like us, and sometimes smaller, and you won't believe what they paid
It's
for them when
crazy.
they are custom made. Yeah, it's
I wanted to
crazy.
tell a
So
story too, but it's crazy. I'm so sorry to laugh, but there's one guy here in Germany that wrote me like, "Oh, cool, you built it yourself. I ordered mine from a company," and was like, "Okay, crazy. Can you tell me what you paid for it?" And it's like the same size as mine, and I I paid like 2K, and he paid fucking 10,000 euros for it.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And is it amazing?
That's so wild. Wow. Wow.
That is so much
That's
money.
nuts.
That's crazy. He had like a built-in back wall and stuff like that, but it's crazy. 10,000 euros. Fuck.
That's wild.
That's hard. And that's crazy. It's like crazy.
Yeah. Definitely, I don't think there's
That's
a lot of
really
us that have
wild.
that kind of
No,
that kind
I
of
don't
money
have
to
that
throw
money.
around.
No. Of course not now.
I'm always not
Must be
really
nice
sure if
though.
there's a
do not.
market for it.
Definitely do
I
not.
think it's a beautiful niche what we are doing, but I'm always not sure if there's a community of people who are really interested in owning something like that. I'm not really sure. What do you think?
So it's a minimum viable audience is what you're looking for there. So
Yeah.
just I think there's always a minimum viable audience. There's like a rapper who has like this joke about this rapper Immortal Technique, and he has this like whole track where he's like, there's a market for chocolate covered cockroaches, dude. You can find a market for that. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. But actually, something kind of along that topic that I'm curious about is like, is there anything that are there like any drawbacks that you can think of that would be prohibitive, right? Are there circumstances or contexts in which you might not recommend using something like this? Like, for example, a sufficiently large reptile might not benefit from an enclosure or setup of this variety. Like, I could imagine a sulcata just busting right through the walls, right? Or I'm just curious if there's something that you could imagine.
I think it would already be difficult to breed animals on a large scale if you had like 10 of these and you are breeding anoles and want to get the eggs out of them. Forget it. It would take too much time.
Yeah, sure.
For large scale breeders, maybe.
The thing is, for example, go for it, Ben.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'm into the mammals, yeah, and most of the mammals that are privately owned, it's rodents. Yeah, and rodents, they like to chew a lot on materials that are not super hard, and it's definitely not possible to keep most of the rodents in a setup with polycarbonate greenhouse panels. They will just chew a hole and escape immediately. It's not a problem with the animals that I'm keeping, but I'm very sure that certain types of animals are just not compatible with a setup like that. You were speaking about the sulcata tortoise. Yes, definitely, it's not a fit. That's true. Yeah, and maybe I'm not sure if I'm sure you can do it right. You can keep a caiman inside, or you can keep full-grown green iguanas in a setup like that. You just have to do it right, but it's
all about the modular part. You can build it slightly different. But something that would be concerning to me is sometimes I thought this would be cool if you add some more branches and you could keep something like eyelash vipers in there or some small arboreal vipers. And then I thought there could be a serious safety issue because of the much space. If you think, oh, I don't see them, go into there, and they could be everywhere. It could be very dangerous.
Right.
Something like vipers.
That makes sense.
So there, I personally would keep them in a smaller enclosure just for my own safety. But I don't keep vipers, so just something to think about.
But for
that's a good point.
The thing is so there are like different types of polycarbonated panels. The one that you can buy on like Amazon with the cheaper greenhouses is like the pretty cheap and flexible polycarbonated panels. They're like you can move them around. For example, ours is like very hard and sturdy, and there's even a bigger one. So let's say you want to keep a green iguana, just buy the bigger polycarbonated panels. The good thing with them is also you can drill holes in them. You can drill like branches to the panels, and they are like super sturdy and hard. But for example, for sulcata tortoises or something like that, so my greenhouse is like standing on top of like a wooden box. The floor is like a wooden box that is like laid out with pond foil, and on top there is like the aluminium frame with the glass and the panels. So you can maybe build like a frame out of, don't know, better, something like a hard frame, and put like the greenhouse stuff on top, like the aluminium frame. So I think it's just how you approach it. But of course,
is that
like
what you would do differently next time, Flo?
the box.
Yeah.
I have no issues with the box, to be honest.
Not yet.
But I got some, to be honest. I'm always not very happy about this wooden box in the bottom, because I've got the same type of build, and it's not really possible to add a drain to that style of bottom. And for Flo's next setup, for example, we will use a huge plastic container, like a pallet size plastic container, What's the size again?
Mhm.
Like a meter by 80 by 80 or
Yeah,
something like
I
that?
think that's it's like
With
used
some.
for, I think, for collecting grapes and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those things that have like, yeah, it's like for I think it's for grapes, to be
It's like
honest.
huge boxes where you harvest like fruits, and you can collect the fruits inside of there on the field. Yeah, and they are
Huh.
standing on little feet, and you've got some rolls below.
Maybe I find it in our chat.
And if you put a setup like that on rolls on a sturdy box that is put on rolls, I think it's very comfortable to move it around inside of your apartment, because all of our setups are at the moment they are standing or directly on the ground. There's some distance between the ground and the box, so for
Mhm.
air to move around in the bottom, but just a few centimeters. But if you just put it a little bit on a platform and put wheels below, I think it is a huge convenience. Yeah.
Huh.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's what
Interesting.
we want to do differently for Flo's next setup, for the version 2 of his current setup, because it needs
Mhm.
to be remodeled for the moving. And yeah, it's going to be a huge plastic box on rolls with a drainage and a double bottom, so the water can drain
Yeah.
in the substrate and you don't have this wet soil all the time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That makes
Mm.
sense.
Mm.
Do you
That's
think
a
we
great
should do
idea.
a documentation about the
Very
build
cool.
process, like maybe put it on YouTube? Do you think it's a bad idea?
Why would it be a bad
Yeah.
idea?
I don't know.
Hate.
I think you should do it.
Will you watch it?
Yeah, I
Okay,
agree.
well, so I think we should start moving towards like getting to the Q&A portion if people
Mhm.
have questions in the live chat. But before we dive into that, I do just want to ask, what do you guys perceive as like the future of greenhouse keeping? Like what's next in your mind? I'm sure Ben has some ideas about this because
Yeah.
he's always scheming over there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd be curious to hear from you guys.
I would like to hear the others' opinions too.
So, do you mean greenhouse keeping in general or at our places?
I guess
Yes.
both. I guess I was thinking more like greenhouse keeping in general, but I'd love to hear both.
Okay, I'm not sure about the general part. That's something Ben clearly will have a vision on. But
Mhm.
for myself, something I would love. It's not achievable right now, but there's this guy in Germany. His Instagram name is Tropenhaus Pandora. Tropenhaus is the German word for greenhouse, and he has
Mm.
a big walk-in greenhouse attached on the outside of his house, and he has a pond in there. He has like huge aroids, huge anthurium species, and like these staghorn ferns and everything. That's my dream. I would love to have something like this. So that's something I would love to achieve one day, but it's clearly not in reach. So,
Clearly
but,
not in reach. What are you talking about, man?
I'm a poor man.
Come on, you can do it, man.
Yeah, sometimes, someday.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so for me it's like, for example, like rebuilding the setup, improve it, and then down the line I really want to just grow the greenhouse, and maybe that's also my dream to have like a really big walk-in greenhouse attached to a house or something like that. That's like my main goal since I was a kid. I always dreamed about it, and that's something I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna do one day, because I'm going to be crazy when I don't do it. It's like a lifetime goal. Yeah, that's like my vision. I just want to continue keeping reptiles in that kind of style because I like it a lot.
Awesome.
We're gonna do it. Flo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's kind of the same vision, and that's what I already said in the beginning. When we first met each other, we connected very strongly on this topic of owning a greenhouse attached to your house, kind of like that. And for me, it's 100% sure it's gonna be a walk-in, maybe 50 square meters type of size greenhouse. It's gonna be a Vietnamese habitat. I'm gonna focus on keeping the slow lowers. That's what I'm doing. That's what my life is about, kind of. And I think I would like to see, us and everything that we are building here, to have a positive influence on people, focusing more on this one amazing project, because this reptile hobby, it always has this little bit of a shady side of, collecting items, collecting Pokemons, and I think the approach that we are having, it's to build a fucking house, a greenhouse, and that's the one house that we build, and it's gonna be the best one that we can make. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
it's not only a cage for an animal, it's more like a slice of nature. It's like a habitat, and we don't only want to satisfy one specific species inside of there. It should be more like a slice of nature, and that's in my opinion, that's the main difference. And the future of greenhouse keeping, just from my perspective personally, I already said that I'm not very sure about if there's a demand for greenhouses for reptile keeping in that scale, that where you can make a living out of it. And to be honest, in my world, it's kind of a goal to make a living out of what we are doing here, like working with building setups, animals, plants, and everything like that. And here in Germany, for example, it was the legalization of the weed, of the cannabis, for example. I don't know if you've heard about it. I don't know if it went through the
No.
media in the
Oh,
United
yeah.
States.
Yeah, we can
Yeah?
smoke weed now legally.
Let's go. Viva la Deutschland.
Let's get it.
Let's go.
Yeah, and I'm
Let's
to
go,
be honest, I'm seeing
Deutschland.
a huge.
Phil is already
Let's
booking
go.
the flights to
Let's
Berlin.
go.
Yeah.
Let's go to Ham next time.
Nah, dude, I live in Colorado. I don't need to go to German land just to
Yeah,
smoke weed.
okay.
It's all right, man. Yeah, you're welcome anyways. So
Oh,
to
for
be
sure,
honest,
for sure.
I'm personally seeing a huge business opportunity in this weed topic, and my goal is to build like automated and aesthetically pleasing greenhouses for growing weed at your place, because I think there's just a lot bigger market, and it's going to be more easy to find people who are interested in setups. But long-term goal, it's going to be solar integrated greenhouses for building habitats. Yeah, and it's just a long story, but
Amazing.
I'm gonna cut it off right here next time. More.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Well, okay.
Would you like to
So
have a
anyone
greenhouse, Ron?
who's I would like to eventually. Yeah.
What would you go for? What's your topic? What's the habitat that you would like to imitate?
I mean, I would totally go for a guy on a Shields biotope, just on a greenhouse scale. Like what I have for my Spilotes, but greenhouse.
So it's a
and
main
so I would
species,
have
the Spilotes?
that would probably be the primary species, but I would have a lot in there because they cohabit well with other reptiles. They don't eat lizards and stuff like that, so I would have amphibians and reptiles in there as well. And yeah.
Okay, so that's basically an invitation to come to your place next year and build something like that.
Yeah, exactly. This is perfect. Come on out. You guys know you have a standing invitation to come out whenever you want.
Yeah.
This is the best time of year,
so
though.
much.
You should come out in spring because it's the best time. Right now, the land here is gorgeous, and the animals, all the reptiles are really active, so it's the best time.
Oh man.
Okay, so maybe
And
Yeah,
you
it's-
guys also have to come over to see the Ham show
Oh
in
yeah,
Germany. Yeah,
it's one of our goals for sure. It's going to happen eventually.
yeah.
Phil and I
And
just need to make a lot
also,
more money
like,
first.
OnlyFans.
True.
Yeah, there we go.
We will
Way
support that one.
ahead of you.
But there's also now a little ham show just for plants. It's called the Botanica.
Yeah.
And I think it happens 2 times a year. And we have been to the last shows. And tomorrow, Ben and I will go there too, but just as visitors.
Nice.
So that's why he's here right now. And,
Amazing.
see.
I wish we had something like that here. We don't have anything like that where I live, but someday. But I mean, for
I would
people
like to add a
watching,
little
anyone
detail.
have any questions? Put them in the chat, and then we'll get to the Q&A section here if there's any questions momentarily. But
Okay,
please,
can I add
go
a
ahead.
little detail
Add your
first
detail.
before we go to
Yes,
the
yeah,
question?
please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you were speaking about the spilotes in a walk-in greenhouse. Yeah. And
yeah,
I would just
yeah.
like to challenge each one of us to think about, have you ever seen a walk-in bioactive habitat greenhouse type of style setup for huge colubrids? I've never seen one.
Yeah.
And we've been speaking about it too, about Til's animals. He's keeping
Yeah.
the Elafe carinata and the Drumacon, the giant colubrids. And we were
Just one.
brainstorming about a walk-in setup for those. And I think you can have amazing interactions with these animals if they
Oh,
are just in their
definitely.
natural area, and you can just join them instead
Yeah.
of grabbing
Yeah.
them out of the setup. I think it can be amazing. We
Yeah.
should do it, Roy.
Do it.
I want to. That's the goal. Long-term goal.
Nice.
I will.
Right.
I will make it happen.
Let's make a plan and action.
Okay. Let's see if anybody has any questions. I don't know if there are any questions. I feel like this has been really, really thorough. So I don't know if there's going to be much coming up in the live chat, but we can just give folks an opportunity.
Yeah, it's good to do.
Let's see. Looks like it's pretty quiet so far. Okay, we got one question here from Father Blue for Ben.
Oi.
With you wanting to do consultations, would you be worried about people not agreeing with paying for information in this day and age and someone stealing your ideas, that kind of thing?
Oh, good question.
I think there are more ideas.
People do that
in my head
already.
than
What do
I
you
can
mean?
put on paper. So I'm not worried about it, to be honest. Yeah, it's like the same system that we are doing in my profession in the solar industry. We are working with 100% transparency on all our information, and we are just so good that nobody can use the information as well as we can. And I've got the same confidence in the greenhouse hobby, to be honest. And I would like to be ready to open source all of what I'm doing. To a certain state, and I'm thinking about building an online app, like a greenhouse planning guide, where you can, to a certain level, customize your setups however you want to, and maybe even order all of the components without any of my consultation. But if you want to go a step further, if you want to do modifications that are not available in this app, then you have to book me for a consultation, and it's going to be a paid service. I'm thinking about a system like that, and then we just have to figure out what's the value that I'm bringing, and what's the value of my time, and how much time do I need to invest in. I think if we can build a slim process, it's going to be good for everybody. That's the way I'm thinking about it. Yeah. And if the people are stealing my ideas, it's making the hobby a better place, I guess. So if somebody can be successful on growing out of my ideas, like taking my ideas and be more successful than I am, so I had a positive impact. And I'm going back to the solar industry. I don't care.
All right. Let me see if there's anything else that's coming up in the chat. Any last tags, everybody watching out there? I think we might actually, like, our video feed might be frozen right now, but I think our audio is still coming through. So let's see if anything comes through.
On my side, the video is still fine.
I think he means on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, just the YouTube. I think that's it. I think we might have to call it.
I've got a question to Phil.
Yeah, go for it.
Are you ready for a question, man?
Always.
Yeah, you're working with arids only, right? So I'm wondering what's your perspective on keeping like animals in planted habitats, as it is especially, I guess, difficult for you because you're not working with moist substrate and everything like that. And if you do work with plants, do you take care of using plants from the habitat where your animals come from? And if no, are you interested in doing that?
Oh yeah. So the short answer is I don't at the moment. I've never. I don't have a sufficient understanding or experience with plants of any kind to keep them alive.
Not yet.
I just don't know enough about. I like the opposite of a green thumb is what I've got. In fact, I have a mess of plants at the jiu-jitsu academy, and one of my front desk staff takes care of them. Like I can't keep them alive. I don't know what I'm doing. That doesn't mean I'm not interested in it. I think that there are unique challenges in the sense that there are, even in a sufficiently large enclosure, people have a tendency to a lot of the reptiles that I work with are sufficiently heavy bodied that the amount of traffic that you can get on a single plant can be kind of detrimental. So you need some pretty sturdy plants, right? Especially if you're talking about a sufficiently heavy bodied desert herbivore that may pick and eat at that plant, right? Then it becomes a sort of like there's a more than one problem. I am always looking at different ways of improving my care, giving my animals more space and more ways of interacting with their environment that are not just on a fake level. You know, I don't like just fake stuff, right? I just, I don't have any fake plants, but I don't have any live ones either. So I'm definitely always interested in learning about that. But I also have to be, sort of at the very beginning of the conversation, we were talking about ways of changing or experimenting with different enclosure varieties. I think in my case in particular, I'm sort of stuck in a situation where part of the reason I don't just build more enclosures myself is because along with running the arid operation, I'm also the manager of a martial arts academy, and Roy and I are doing a podcast, and we're working with Happy Dragons. All that, and I have a kid coming up here in July. So with all of that stuff put together, I just don't have. Hey, thanks. Yeah, we're super excited about it. I'm really pumped. But with all of that stuff put together, it makes it very difficult for me to take on a new endeavor, a new undertaking, right? So that's why I have a tendency to look for sort of pre-made, ready-made stuff, and why I would probably be interested in your consultation service, right? Because I'm like, if you can just tell me what to buy, and I'll pay somebody to put it together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Get it? Yeah, I get it. It's a different approach that you're doing. Yeah, you are trying to make it easily maintainable and productive at the end of the day. It doesn't necessarily have to be aesthetically pleasing. It's more like about being
No, it does.
practical.
It definitely does.
Get it?
I want it because I have to look at it, and I want it to be aesthetically pleasing. Now, admittedly, the way the interior of my space is set up at the moment isn't exactly aesthetically pleasing if you're walking through it. But when you're inside of each enclosure, it's very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
Right. So
True.
Right.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's a different approach than what I was speaking about earlier, building one setup and it's got to be the
Sure.
one. Yeah, it's just not possible if you want to breed on scale. I fully get it. Yeah, but I was just interested in it because for me, it's by now it's not very difficult anymore to work with plants, even though Till and also Flo, they've got a lot more experience with plants than me. But you can get used to it, but still the arid type of plants are kind of a mystery to me. I think I'm overwatering them. I don't know. Yeah,
they're really different.
It's another
Yeah,
challenge.
I don't know. Yeah, I wish I knew a little
it
bit
is
more
different.
about that. You know, there's all kinds of weird, like especially when I go out to Arizona or Southern California, I'll run into plants where I'm like, man, I'd love to learn how to grow this inside and feed it to stuff, or grow it in the backyard or this stuff. But it's
cacti,
just,
for example.
sure. Yeah. Well, there's one in particular, this plant called Tacoma stans. That's the one I want to learn how to cultivate in some way. Tacoma stans. That's the one, because that chuckwallas eat the hell out of it. Or chuckwalla delight.
Okay.
Yeah, both of those. It's just, man. Anyway, that's a different thing.
Shout out to you for hating on fake plants. Nothing worse than plastic plants, in my opinion.
All right. Well, before we
I don't like
before
the
we
plastic
close this
plants.
out, before we close this out, where can folks find you? I mean, we've got the tags for your IGs on the YouTube up for people to see, but if folks do want to get in touch, can they? Is it cool if people send you a message, ask about questions they might have, that kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. One thing, we have like the Greenhouseboyz channel, but I can't get into the account anymore. So
There's a reason for that.
yeah,
Just kidding.
no, I think it's best to reach out to our private accounts, and I think all of us are super happy to answer and help out people. That's like a best thing we can do, right? Help each other.
Awesome. Amazing. Cool.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
very
any
sure
last tags
everybody is
before we?
super, sorry. Yeah,
And
everybody's
maybe
super happy to get in touch with people who are interested and just build a network and everything. And I think that's a huge asset that you two have got, like Roy and Phil. You must be so deep into the hobby, and you must have such amazing connections, and it's probably a very valuable asset. And everybody, all of us, we're definitely interested in growing our network. So yeah, I'm happy to speak to everybody.
Same here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
and maybe
Nice.
a little self promotion. Okay.
Yes, please. Yeah.
No,
Let's hear it.
no.
The
Okay,
announcement.
so yeah, the announcement. So maybe, no, not maybe, but we're gonna launch a podcast together with Stefan Terrarium channel. It's gonna call
Amazing.
European Herpetoculture, and yeah, I think we're gonna talk about greenhouses also on there and other topics and have cool guests. I think that's people should check it out if you're interested, and I think that's maybe we can do an episode on greenhouses and stuff like that. So
Absolutely.
little
I can't wait.
self-promotion.
It's gonna be a
Seriously,
fantastic
can't wait.
podcast. Y'all are all so passionate and knowledgeable people, so I can't wait for that to drop.
Oh, thank you guys.
We will
Yeah,
we will
that'll be
spread the
great.
word
Much.
when it does.
Yeah, it's the European Herpetoculture podcast. I think we're gonna have
Yeah.
our first recording session like next week, right?
Next week.
Oh man,
But
Nice.
I think we will, do some recordings before we drop the first episode. So it will take some time, but I think within the next few months we will start.
Amazing.
publishing.
we've already got a logo.
Yes. That's the important part.
Right.
Once you
Yeah,
have the
actually,
logo, it's official.
For me personally, you two, you are the biggest inspiration in terms of podcasting inside of the hobby. There are other podcasts that are
guys.
cool, but I'm not really listening to any others, to be honest. So I'm looking up to you. It's cool.
Yeah, same,
Thanks, y'all.
same here.
Means a
Big
lot.
inspiration.
That's awesome. Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll close it out for the day. Thank you to everybody who joined on the YouTube side. We really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.